So I'm just down here at Sydney Seaplanes. We've got I guess you'd call it a relationship with one of the owners here, so we get to use it every now and then. One of the great things about Sydney Harbour is getting an opportunity to kind of be in a nice environment when you're trying to have conversations and board meetings and those kinds of things. So we're very lucky to be here. I've got the boat and come here by water. So yeah, day ahead workshop with the ACE training team, and yeah. So I'm back at the airport this morning, heading up to SRO Technology in Brisbane for a quarterly board meeting. So once a quarter we go on site and spend the whole day together rather than just a monthly 1 or 2 hour board meeting online. And it's a good opportunity to spend time face to face, but also get a bit deeper on a few topics. It's great. Had a big day yesterday down at Rose Bay with the ACE training team, and that's going really well. I think we're now at the end of that kind of 6-month post-acquisition piece for multi-skills, and it's now an opportunity to get back to the rhythm and the discipline that we had around the executive and the CEO and the board table. And rightly so, we had to kind of let a few of those things go over the last 6 months so the team could focus in rather than out. And I think it's important to allow that flexibility from time to time. But now that the dust is settling, good opportunity to get the rhythm back. And that's what we're focusing on next. So yeah, great thing is the underlying business is going really, really well. Revenue's on track, profitability is good, and now it's just a matter of getting that to keep repeating itself, get the reps in over the remainder of the financial year. It's school holidays, so there's a lot of work from home this week, also hanging out with the boys. But today I've had catch up with Rob from ACE just to talk through a few structural things that are going on there, which is really good. And I've now just started up a new process where kind of on my website, I've got this access to my calendar where people can jump in and grab 15 minutes just as an intro call, just to learn a bit about, I guess, me and what I do and whether or not there's any ways that I might be able to help them with what they're doing around search and ETA and other things. So it looks like I've got 4 of those booked in for this week, 2 today, another one on Thursday, another one on Friday. So it'd be interesting to see how they play out. It's only a new feature that I've added, but it's because I just found so many people reaching out to me on LinkedIn looking to grab time with me. So I thought, why not kind of try and make it a bit more accessible and see what comes of it. Anyway, I've got a couple of those coming up, and I think that's about it for the day. Then I've got the rest of the day off just mucking around with the boys, and then a few other calls for the rest of the week, but hopefully trying to keep it a bit light. It's one of those life by design things, right? So I've tried to keep this week clear so that I've got time to spend with the kids until they go back to school next week. So what I've been doing is trying to kind of build a bit of a, I guess you call it a CRM, but I want to make sure that when I'm following up with people further down the track, I can pick up as close as possible to where I left off. So I'm going to record notes from the discussion. So then when they call me back, I can go to my notes and I can pick up where we left off. Because I find that I'm speaking to so many people, I don't want to lose track of that and have to kind of start again every time we do a conversation. So take the notes, I talk them through here, and then Helen very kindly works out how to convert those into good notes in our CRM system on Kajabi. So here we go. Just got off a call with details are in the calendar. They're raising a search fund in Europe. They're both originally from Austria. His family actually owns a ski brand, which is quite cool. And he's also been involved in a whole bunch of B2B software businesses. He moved to London to be involved in private equity and was involved in some acquisitions of software businesses in vertical niches. So for example, childcare ERPs, working through Europe, in particular in Switzerland. He's done a bunch of work with a family office who is also going to be one of their primary investors. He did mechanical engineering before finance, so a bit similar to me, I guess. He's got a bit of a technical background and a finance background. They're both Austrian, so they're going to focus on Austria, Switzerland, and Germany, but they've also got a bit of a tilt towards Benelux as well because of the English speaking there and also the exposure to software potential businesses. I said to them that I've been through a bit of a busy phase and I've got a few things settling down over the next month. They only started their search capital raise a week ago, so they're very early. I said to them that they should just reach out to me again at the end of October. And I asked them to send me through their pitch deck. We'll see what happens after that. I think they could be good. I don't know whether I'm ready to invest in Europe yet. Tag them as Entrepreneur tagged them as Europe. And there we go, that's done. So just been for a ride around Manly Dam in beautiful Sydney here. It's an awesome day outside. Definitely one of my objectives at the moment is to try and program in this stuff for myself. It's very easy for my calendar to fill up with all sorts of stuff, which I love doing, but you kind of got to make time for the right stuff as well. And fitness is one of them. So just got off a call before the ride with an aspiring entrepreneur who's looking to buy a business and is thinking about, should he look to buy something bigger and get a group of investors on board, or is it okay to buy something smaller with the capital he's got and maybe one or two investors, and how to weigh that up? One of the things that came out of the conversation was this concept that if you buy a bigger business, it's lower risk than buying a smaller business. I think that's a really blunt assessment. I think a lot of people get fooled into thinking that that's the case. Sure, like size is a mitigant to risk, but it doesn't mean that lack of size creates risk. It's like saying that diversification manages risk. So therefore, if you're not diversified, then you're going to be too risky. But I think Warren Buffett has proven that wrong a few times. So for me, size is just a matter of focus. So sure, a smaller business might be subject to getting tipped over in less turbulence. But equally, if that's from an investor perspective, if you've got effectively independent management in a small business, then yes, you've got key person risk and you've got all sorts of things going on. If you're the owner operator of a smaller business, you can manage that risk of size by being hands-on yourself. And I've experienced that myself directly with the businesses that I've bought. So I guess the takeaway is definitely don't correlate size with risk. There are other factors that are more influential on the risk of the business or the investment than purely size alone. And also, if you think that you can see a mitigant to a particular risk, the lack of that mitigant doesn't necessarily mean that you can't manage the risk in another way. Anyway, there's lots of ways to skin the ETA cat, and that's part of my key message. So always keep your mind open. One of the other things that I have to do in my role as a director of these businesses that get acquired by search funds is help with reporting to the shareholders. So typically we do that on a quarterly basis, and we'll produce a short report and we'll get all the investors onto a online call, and then give them an opportunity to ask questions directly of the directors and directly of the CEO and the operator, so that it engages them in the process. And I guess this should also be a two-way street, right? Like obviously there's an accountability that we have to those investors managing their funds as they're invested in these entities, and tell them what we're up to and how we're taking care of it. But also it's an opportunity for us to seek their input. One of the facets of a search fund is that active investor involvement. And so on the registers of each of these businesses, we've got some really experienced people. And so as we tell them about what's happening in the business, what the plans are for the business, and which direction we're heading, it's highly likely that they'll have some excellent feedback that we can take into play. So yeah, just getting prepped now, and the call will last about an hour, I guess, and do a bit of an intro and then take some Q&A. And yeah, looking forward to, hearing the feedback and seeing what their perspectives are. And now I've got another one of these 15-minute phone calls, catching up with a guy called Colin Daniels. So another new intro, which is always interesting to learn more about people and see if there's ways in which we can work together. So see what I learn. Here's a quick thought bubble for you. I was on a call this morning with a journalist from New Zealand who's preparing an article on the growth of search funds and ETA in Australia, New Zealand, and I guess Asia Pacific. And he was asking a bunch of questions about search funds and the way they work and all that kind of thing. And I was trying to explain the opportunity, particularly from the perspective of the number of businesses that might be available to purchase, because that's something that people often ask about, is are there enough businesses out there that we can buy in this space? And I believe there's tens, if not hundreds of thousands of them. So I don't think there's any shortage of supply. And one of the causes for that is there's obviously a whole generation of baby boomers who are at or coming to or even past retirement age who are significant owners of this particular part of the market. And people talk about the grey tsunami or like a wave of retirees or whatever that's currently driving a bunch of businesses onto the market for purchase. And it made me think about the analogy of actual tidal movements. And when the tide moves from high tide to low tide, the water itself is moving quickest in the middle at mid-tide, right? So halfway between high tide and low tide, you get the fastest flowing water. And I think we're probably somewhere around about that point in terms of the tide of businesses that are owned by baby boomers that are looking to sell. You know, that we probably saw the first of them coming to market maybe 5 years ago, maybe 10 years ago. We probably still are going to see more coming to market over the next 5 to 10 years. And so we potentially are right in the middle of it now. So it made me wonder whether we will see that peak flow rate in terms of availability of businesses over this next kind of 2 to 3 year period as we're in the middle of that tide. So anyway, just a thought bubble that came to mind while I was trying to explain things to a journalist in New Zealand.